Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I'm Tanvi Taneja. And for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague in London, Ollie Barrett. Ollie, happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday to you too, Tanvi. It's 11:30 a.m. here in London, 12:30 p.m. across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, we've got reaction to Russia's election, an EU deal with Egypt, and Apple and Google in negotiations. First, the headlines.
Russia's Vladimir Putin wins election in the biggest ever landslide in post-Soviet history. Putin warns Russia-NATO conflict is just one step away from World War III. Israel to offer Hamas 6-week Gaza truce in return of 40 hostages in mediated talks in Qatar today as troops raid Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol joins US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. And electioneering heats up in India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds public rallies in Karnataka and Telangana in his mega South push today. Stalled discussions aimed at securing a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas are expected to resume in Qatar as Israel is sending a high-level delegation headed by its Mossad chief on Monday. The talks are designed to secure a 6-week truce under which Hamas would free 40 hostages. Israel says this stage of negotiations could take at least 2 weeks. The talks in Qatar would mark the first time both Israel and Hamas leaders join negotiations since the start of the holy month of Ramadan. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reaffirmed his determination to launch an offensive in Rafah. Meanwhile, Netanyahu said Israel would push into Rafah, the last relatively safe place for Hamas in Gaza. But he also asserted that Israel will not leave civilians trapped when its forces begin their assault on the southern Gaza city.
Our goal in eliminating the remaining terrorist battalions in Rafah goes hand in hand with enabling the civilian population to leave Rafah. It's not something that we will do while keeping the population locked in place. In fact, we'll do the very opposite. We'll enable them to leave because our consideration for reducing and minimizing civilian casualties has guided us and will continue to guide us in the future.
Following Netanyahu's statement on Rafah, the Israeli military said on Monday that its troops were conducting a precise operation in the compound of Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. Israeli army also released a video of the operation. IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari said senior Hamas terrorists have used the hospital to regroup and command attacks against Israel.
IDF is conducting a high-precision operation in limited areas of Shifa hospital, following concrete intelligence that demanded immediate action. We know that senior Hamas terrorists have regrouped inside the Shifa hospital and are using it to command attacks against Israel. Our targeted mission isn't just an operational necessity, it's a global imperative. Our forces have undergone specified training to prepare them for the sensitive environment and complex scenarios they may encounter. Our war is against Hamas, not against the people of Gaza. We seek no harm to the civilians that Hamas is hiding behind.
US President Joe Biden has Prime Minister Leo Varadkar during the annual St. Patrick's Day reception at the White House on Sunday.
And the Taoiseach and I agree about the urgent need to increase humanitarian aid in Gaza and get the ceasefire deal. Get a ceasefire deal that brings the hostages home and move toward a two-state solution.
Soviet landslide in Russia's election, cementing his grip on power in a victory that's being questioned by many worldwide. My colleague Ollie Barrett is in London and gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Ollie, with no serious competition, this was expected, isn't it?
It was indeed, Tanvi. Russian President Vladimir Putin securing that landslide victory, as you say, cementing his rule for another 6 years amid the ongoing invasion of Ukraine. 71-year-old Putin will therefore embark on a new 6-year term that would see him overtake Joseph Stalin to become Russia's longest-serving leader.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is all set for another 6-year term in office as he secured a landslide win in the country's presidential elections. He called the result as a proof of Russian people's trust as the turnout exceeded 70%.
87 million of our dear voters took part in the election. That means the turnout was record high and unprecedented. It has never been as high before. It is 77.46%.
Putin reiterated Moscow's position on the Ukraine conflict. He said Russia is waiting for talks on a French proposal which calls for a ceasefire in Ukraine during the Olympic Games, but said he would keep Russia's interests on the front line into account.
We are ready to discuss any issues, but as always, within any situation, we will proceed from the interests of the Russian Federation and, of course, the situation at the front line.
Amid strong Western reactions surrounding the election and the conflict in Ukraine, he dropped a stern warning that any interference from Western troops will prove to be a catalyst for Third World War.
I have already said this, and it is clear to everyone that this will be just one step away from a full-scale World War III. I don't think anybody is interested in this.
Putin also spoke about opposition leader Alexei Navalny and plans about a prisoner swap before his death in prison last month.
Unfortunately, what happened is what happened. On one condition only, I said, we will change it so he doesn't come back, let him sit there. But things happen. There's nothing you can do about it.
Случилось то, что случилось.
If President Putin completes his full term by 2030, he'll surpass Joseph Stalin to become Russia's longest-serving leader over more than 200 years. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, let's go live to Moscow now for more on this story. We'll talk to DD India's Dasha Chernyshova, who's joining me now. Dasha, there has been a lot of condemnation from the West of these elections. What is the Russian response to that criticism?
Well, as expected, Moscow says it is nonsense and absurd to call the election in which 87% of the voters cast their ballot for the incumbent President Vladimir Putin as illegitimate. The Kremlin has dismissed all the criticism coming from the Western countries, saying that if they say the election was illegitimate, then these 87% of people who cast their ballot for Vladimir Putin are illegitimate as well. And obviously, the Kremlin is now pointing to the fact that the turnout in this year's presidential election has set the new record in Russia's modern history, reaching 77%, with almost 99% of the ballots already counted. The Kremlin from the very beginning was saying that it was prepared for this sort of reaction to come from the Western countries, but at the same time, Moscow does insist that all the voting procedures have been taken in line with the international norms.
Dasha, what do these election results mean for Russia's military operation in Ukraine?
Well, we got some sort of a hint from Vladimir Putin as early results were announced overnight. He showed up in his headquarters in Gostinny Dvor in Moscow, and he talked to the people there. The idea that he put forward was that the Russian people have voted for the strong Russia as well as for the unified Russia. And many analysts actually here have also been saying that that was not the election to re-elect Vladimir Putin, but that was also a sort of plebiscite side on the attitude of Russians towards the operation in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin has said that Moscow is willing to engage into the negotiations with Ukraine, but also once again reiterated that it is not possible at this moment, as there is, according to him, no one to talk to in Kiev at the moment. He also has hinted that the so-called sanitary zone will have to be created in Ukraine, meaning that the attacks that have been taking place over the course of the past days against the Russian Federation coming from the Ukrainian side and targeting mostly the border regions, these attacks have to be prevented. And to make sure that people in Russia live safely, Vladimir Putin said that this sanitary zone will have to be created, obviously hinting to the fact that Russia is planning to continue with its operation in Ukraine.
Okay, Dasha, thank you. The European Union's Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell reacted strongly to the Russian presidential election, saying that it happened in a restricted environment.
We have seen the Russian elections, and a statement from the 27 will be issued after the Council. But I want to anticipate that this has not been free and fair elections, no OSCE observation, highly restricted environment. This is diplomatically what I can say, but more than that, this election has been based on repression and intimidation and being held on the Ukrainian occupied territory, violating Ukrainian sovereignty.
White House National Security Council spokesperson termed the elections unfair, citing Vladimir Putin's suppression of political opponents. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky denounced the Russian polls as illegitimate, calling for Vladimir Putin to face trial in The Hague. Germany, the UK and Slovakia criticised the results due to the imprisonment of political opponents and censorship. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron said the polls were not free and fair. The leaders of Bolivia, Cuba and Venezuela congratulated Vladimir Putin on his re-election. The French media has discussed the exceptionally high percentage of votes in Putin's favour, reflecting what they call a Soviet result. The French Foreign Ministry said conditions for a free and democratic election were not respected in Russia. Meanwhile, let's get the latest from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And 2 people were killed and 4 were injured in Ukrainian shelling of the village of Nikolskaya in Russia's Belgorod region. Attacks on Belgorod have taken place frequently since 2022, but escalated in the run-up to Russia's presidential election. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Air Force claims to have destroyed 17 out of 22 Russia-launched drones overnight. The European Union has announced a funding package worth $8.06 billion and an upgraded relationship with Egypt as part of a push to stem migrant flows to Europe that have been criticised by rights groups. The agreement, which was announced during a delegation visit to Cairo, aims to bolster collaboration in renewable energy, trade and security, while providing loans and other assistance over the next 3 years to support Egypt's struggling economy. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, along with Prime Ministers of Italy, Greece, Austria, Belgium and the President of Cyprus, met with Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Cairo on Sunday. Uber has agreed to pay $178 million to Australian taxi and hire car drivers, operators and licence holders to compensate them for losing income and licence values when the rideshare giant moved into the Australian market. According to the lawsuit, Uber's 2012 arrival in the market took revenue from licensed taxi drivers while destroying the value of the licenses they had paid for. Uber said it never broke the law knowingly.
Well, today, Maurice Blackburn is very proud to announce that we have secured a $271.8 million settlement in the Uber class action. If approved by the court, this will be the 5th highest class action settlement in Australian legal history, which puts beyond any doubt that we have held Uber to account. This case has succeeded where so many others have failed. Cases in Victoria, Queensland and Western Australia against state governments all ran and failed. This is a day that we're all very proud of and a tremendous outcome for group members.
US tech giant Apple is in talks to build Google's Gemini artificial intelligence engine in the iPhone. Apple and Google are in active negotiations to let Google's Gemini AI power some new features coming to the iPhone's software this year. These two parties haven't decided the terms or the branding of an AI agreement yet. Apple has recently held discussions with the Microsoft-backed OpenAI and has considered using its model as well. And that's it from me here in London for today. Tanvi, back to you.
Thank you so much, Ollie. Ollie Barrett joining us from London. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. Seoul hosts the 3rd Summit for Democracy with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken in attendance. China resolutely opposes South Korea inviting Taiwan to the summit again. And 3-day Startup Mahakumb 2024 gets underway in India's national capital, New Delhi.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. As election campaigning is picking up in India, senior BJP leader and Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed a rally and a public meeting in the southern state of Karnataka today. The state's ardent supporters welcomed their leader in the city of Shivamogga. Earlier, the Prime Minister addressed a public meeting in Telangana. Prime Minister Modi said he is ready to take on those who proclaim to put an end to Shakti. He said he is a worshipper of Shakti and those who represent it, such as the mothers, the sisters and daughters of India. He was referring to the remark earlier made by opposition leader Rahul Gandhi. He is currently addressing multiple rallies and roadshows in southern India. So PM Modi will also hold a roadshow in Tamil Nadu's Coimbatore later today.
मैं भारत मां का पुजारी हूं। मैं आप शक्ति स्वरूपा सब माता बहन बेटियों का भी पुजारी हूं। और जिन्होंने कल शिवाजी पार्क में इंडिया अलायंस ने अपना घोषणा पत्र शक्ति को खत्म करने के लिए किया है, मैं इस चुनौती को स्वीकार करता हूं और मैं इन शक्ति स्वरूपा माताओं बहनों की रक्षा के लिए जान की बाजी लगा दूंगा।
The southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu's Chief Minister M.K. Stalin and the state's Congress President K. Selva Peruntagai held a meeting to discuss seat sharing for the upcoming general elections. Today, the Indian National Congress has formed an alliance of 40 upcoming elections. Tamil Nadu's Member of Parliament and DMK leader Tiruchi Siva said that the opposition alliance is going to win in all 40 seats of Tamil Nadu and Puducherry.
No, DMK is already in the field. We are working, our cadre are working, and we have been campaigning. Too many number of public meetings are being held. And now the takeoff will be for the elections. And we are sure that all the 40 seats, Tamil Nadu and Puducherry, will be won by our alliance.
More from India, the groundbreaking Startup Mahakumb 2024, a unique three-day event uniting India's entire startup community, commenced at New Delhi's Bharat Mandapam on Monday. With over 50,000 business delegates vying to participate, the event will host over 1,000 applicants from across the globe. India now ranks third globally in startup ecosystems, and the Mahakumb aims to further raise its stature. Amitabh Kant, former CEO of Niti Aayog, and R.K. Singh, Secretary of Commerce and Industry Ministry, attended the opening session. Kant emphasized the importance for startups to focus on transitioning into AI companies before exploring other avenues.
All of you must actually first become an AI company. First become an AI company and then do everything else. Reverse, re-engineer, completely become an AI company. That will make you transform. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This Mahakumb, to my mind, is a great, great event. It really brings a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for India.
Now, Fund of Funds for Startups has committed 9,500 crore rupees for the promotion of new ventures in India in line with the Startup India Action Plan. It has approved a corpus of 10,000 crore rupees for the contribution to various alternative investment funds registered with Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI. DD India's correspondent Ajay Mishra caught up with the chairman of Small Industries Development Bank of India, S. Raman, for more on this during Startup Mahakumb 2024.
We have with us the chairman of CMD, Mr. S. Ramanan, to exclusively on the DD India. Sir, thanks very much. How is the fund of 10,000 crore working really with the startup ecosystem that we started?
So as it is known, a fund of funds, we have given money to about 120 AIFs, or we can call them as the daughter funds. These AIFs have in turn given funding to over 1,100 startups. The amount of money, of course, will vary depending on the requirement of those companies, but our commitment to the AIFs has now reached 10,000 crores. What I can only tell you is that the AIF industry has bloomed and grown so much in our country. AIFs have taken money from domestic and foreign sources for another 56,000 crores. So this is really what is, I will say, fueled the startup ecosystem in our country.
So you also said that some states like Uttar Pradesh have also come forward for that additional 2,000 crore of funds. How is that panning out, and what's the return that is being generated on those funds?
So, first we are talking about the investment phase. So I think at this point it is no use talking about returns because they will come later. Now the investment phase, we are saying some of the state governments, Assam, Tripura, UP, Orissa, Maharashtra, and on the pipeline is even Haryana. They have said that they would like to bring their money so that they encourage startups in their states. This money is given to the fund of funds so that whenever we look at the AIF, we can ask the AIFs that do they have specially a pipeline of companies in these particular states so that we can give them money from the funds given by those state governments. Then this is how we will be able to fuel and accelerate the amount of investments made by the AIFs in different parts of the country.
More from Asia now. North Korea fired multiple ballistic missiles in the Sea of Japan on Monday. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who was in South Korea to attend the 3rd Summit for Democracy, also met South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol to discuss various issues. A report.
North Korea's belligerence continues unabated. Pyongyang fired multiple short-range ballistic missiles to the east of South Korea in the Sea of Japan on Monday. This move comes at a time when US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in South Korea to attend the 3rd Summit for Democracy. Reacting to the missile launches, South Korea's Defense Minister Shin Bok-sik said that North Korea's provocations will not go unpunished.
I believe North Korea has continued to repeat provocations because they don't have much to lose by making them. We welcome dialogue with North Korea, but our government maintains a firm policy of holding North Korea accountable if it makes a wrong decision.
Blinken met South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol on Monday on the sidelines of the summit. Blinken assured Yeol of the US's support for peace and stability in the Korean Peninsula against North Korea's provocations. Yoon called for close cooperation with the US to enhance democracy. Blinken also had a discussion with his South Korean counterpart, Cho Tae-yol. The two discussed bilateral issues, including ways to strengthen the South Korea-US alliance. Both have strongly condemned North Korea's missile launches. Earlier, speaking at the opening of the Third Summit for Democracy, Antony Blinken said technology should be employed to sustain democratic values against efforts of authoritarian and repressive regimes.
As authoritarian and repressive regimes deploy technologies to undermine democracy and human rights, we need to ensure that technology sustains and supports democratic values and norms.
The ties between US and South Korea keep moving north. The 10-day annual joint military drill between the two nations concluded last Thursday. With the strategic military alliance, the two allies hope to check Kim Jong-un's aggression. Jant Das's report for DD India.
And now we take a look at other stories making news around the world. West Africa's Burkina Faso has reported an outbreak of highly pathogenic H5N1 bird flu on a farm located in its capital, Ouagadougou. According to a report by the World Organization for Animal Health, the virus has killed 441 birds out of a flock of 641. An Arizona migrant shelter that has helped thousands of asylum seekers in recent years plans to halt most operations by the end of the month. This comes amid a political gridlock in Washington over federal funding for migrants. This raises concerns about homelessness and costs to border communities. Assyrian Maserati, or dawn caller of Ramadan, Abu al-Hijja is keeping traditions alive in old Damascus with his pre-dawn melodies during Islam's holy month of Ramadan. Abu al-Hijja continues to serenade residents despite the turmoil in Syria, which has forced many Maseratis to cease their nocturnal calls. That's all for this edition of DD India Global. Tune in for another edition of the show at 7:30 p.m. IST, that is 2 p.m. GMT. To let us know your thoughts on the news of the day, you can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram at DD India Live. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news